What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to give my review score predictions for Mafia Definitive Edition. Now, this is kind of a series that I've started over the last couple months. I've had a load of fun doing it. I know that, this oftentimes attracts different people than the ones that normally watch the channel, so welcome. If you guys haven't already subscribed, make sure you're doing that. We're getting very, very close to this game coming out. There's going to be lots of content on this channel and on my second channel. I'll leave a link for that in the description below as well if you guys want to check that channel out. I've covered Mafia a lot over there as well. So again, this is a fun thing I do. This is not to be taken overly seriously, and this is also something that, look, personally to me, and I always try and say this in the beginning of these videos, I don't go based off of reviews. I do this because this is fun, because I do like looking at reviews and looking at the scores games and movies get, but at the same time, I don't care. I don't make my decision getting these things off of it. Okay, so I think that's important for you guys to know. And by the way, if you do, that's completely cool. That's honestly kind of why I'm making this video. And I actually normally don't get a lot of things right on the channel, but review scores, I tend to be very, very close in the ballpark of where it's going to go. My last one I did was Avengers, and I was pretty darn close to where Avengers actually got. So, all right, then this kind of helps us, by the way, talk about the game a little bit more, too, about where maybe the strengths and weaknesses of this game will come. I think this is going to do really good. I really, I'm recording this a couple days before you guys are seeing it. Again, by the time you guys do see it, we got a week and, about 2 weeks. Let's maybe round up. But really only like 10, 11 days until the game comes out. I don't know when the review embargo lifts. I assume it's not going to be like the day of, the day before. Hopefully it's a few days before. That also means that they have confidence in their game, so that would be a good thing, by the way, if the review scores go up sooner rather than later. I'm not saying this week, but sometime early next week, hopefully we get our answers for this. And I think overall people are going to have some really good things to say. Even I did a poll on this channel and I said, okay, which, remake / remaster are you most looking forward to? Now, I left off a couple of them. Mass Effect, the remastered trilogy, which I think a lot of people probably would have voted for if I put that on there. I left a few of them off. I even left like Demon Souls off because I was trying to pick games that are closer to releasing. But Mafia crushed it. Mafia got, I think, 53% of the vote. Now, yeah, it was like a 4,000 voted, poll, but I think that does kind of show the enthusiasm for Mafia overall. I do think this is going to be one of those successful remakes. I think that kind of all of the, talk of this game, all of the press about this game leading into this point has always been really, really solid. I think with games that have issues, okay, and again, depending on where you view these different games, but like Avengers, let's say. Avengers, you could kind of tell over the last several months or last several years that game was going to be split, like at best. There was going to be a lot of issues. You could sense the issues. I mean, we got to play it in the beta, right? So we kind of all knew, what people may have said about that game. But again, you kind of can see, and you can see people's general opinion on it leading into it. With Mafia, it's been largely, I haven't seen really any negatives on this game. And that's, by the way, very, very good. Now, have there been games that have been all positive to then come out and just not do good? Yes. Have there also been examples of the game, again, talking well about it leading into it, and then the game just flat out is good? Yes, that's happened before as well. So for Mafia, I really do think it's that example. Now, the question is, how high does it go? Now, I normally give myself, I think, 3 or 4 points to work with when I say like a prediction. So I don't just give one number. I kind of give a small little range to see if I'm close. I really do think this game could get in the high 8s. I really feel, and I think that's honestly a really good thing. Without playing the original, it's hard to say if it can get into the 9s because I just don't know how good the base game is. And that is a point I do want to talk about right after I do this prediction, because I do think there's something to talk about with the whole remake discussion, going on here. But I will say, and I'll give myself 4 points in all, I'm going to say it'll get a 86 to an 89. So that's counting, obviously, those two numbers as well. That's where I think it's going to land. I think that would be extremely, extremely good. That would fit in with some of the higher games of this year, kind of the upper echelon of games, and I think that would largely mean that, hey, pretty much everything about this game is at least good or better than good, right? So I think, honestly, it's got everything it takes to be there. If it gets less than that, then I feel like generally it may just not be a good remake. Like, it may not actually have the parts that make a remake good. If it gets even higher than that, well, then I've just underestimated, I guess, maybe how good the original Mafia is and how good this can do at replicating it. But that's a point I want to talk about here for the next little bit of this video is the tough thing with reviews, and I do run into this when I talk about, review scores or predicting review scores, or when they happen. Sometimes I'll do videos reacting to them, and I'll have the same kind of discussion. The problem is when you do a remake or a remaster, what are you grading on? And I think it's a really, really tough thing. You see Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, which just came out, like a week and a half ago, like September 4th, I think same day as the Avengers, right? That game was reviewed very, very well. I think it was like an 88 on Metacritic. Very good. It was getting in the high 8s, low 9s, maybe low 8s, obviously, to kind of balance stuff out. I mean, it was getting good scores. And I still, even with that game, saw a little confliction where people were saying, it still maybe feels a little bit like it did back then, but like that's the whole point. You know what I mean? But with Mafia, it's different. Honestly, it's maybe the most different because for Mafia, it's so old, 2002, that the point of this remake, I think, and this is how I would grade it if I was a game journalist and I was a reviewer of this game, is, again, with some games, like Tony Hawk, you probably do want to keep the skateboarding mechanics the same. In fact, that's the whole point, because it's literally like perfection. Like people still, I mean, the gameplay of that game is still literally amazing now. All you really have to do is freshen up kind of everything else around it, maybe tighten up the controls a little bit, but for the large part, you leave it. At the same time, you could look at a game like maybe Destroy All Humans. Now, Destroy All Humans, that was a remake, right? That was in July. I liked it. I thought it was really solid, but you could feel its age. It was 2005, and now it was, brought back 15 years later. And while, the gameplay still is solid, like it's still okay, you can feel its age. And I even talked about in that video when I covered that game that I would kind of prefer next, just give me a brand new Destroy All Humans. I kind of want to know what it feels like to play this game in 2020, like with the gameplay built from the ground up for this year, or obviously for next year, the year after, whenever it comes out. For Mafia, it's difficult because you want to keep the life of what that game was back in 2002. You want to keep that. You want to keep kind of the atmosphere, the environment, the characters, right, the story. Those are things you keep, but you really want to completely revitalize really everything else. And even the way that they're going is they're changing a lot of things, actually, right? Some things they're fleshing out a bit more in terms of even like additional scenes. They're doing gameplay changes, right? Making it more like Mafia 3 than actual Mafia 1. So there are changes there. And the question is, are those things okay? I think for the example of Mafia Definitive Edition, it is. You kind of need to do that because I think the whole point for this one is that, look, there are people that played the game in 2002. I mean, there's people, even I see you guys comment on my videos that they said, you guys have said you've played it. You see people that are working on this game, Hangar 13. Some of those people made that game back in 2002. But at the same time, we are not in 2002, and a lot of people, trust me, a lot of people that are buying this game have never played the first game. I would say it's definitely over, and I guess there's no way of me knowing this, but I'm going to say it with confidence as if I know it. I'm going to say over 50% of the people that get this game have never played the original. I really do. I think so, because of the way they've done the trilogy, the way that Mafia 2 and 3, I think, have been stepping stones for people to get in the franchise. One, being just so old and gaming, obviously, it targets younger people, and younger people constantly jump into the gaming, world. I think a lot of people just flat out have not yet played the first game. So what you need to do for this game is you need to make it a game for 2020 as best you can while keeping the original vision of the original Mafia. Now, why I say all that? Well, that goes into the review, because how do you grade it? Do you grade it based off of the improvements it made to the original? Do you base it off of games right now in 2020? I think visually, I think storytelling-wise, I think character-wise, you could easily compare all of that. Gameplay is tough because how much of a change is it going to be? If it's substantial, then I guess you could judge it based off of today's standards. If it's not substantial, then you may have to, base it back, off of that. Also, like level design and things like that, it seems like it's pretty darn solid. I mean, from the stuff we've seen, it looks really good. But, we've even seen with the preview event, like the media that got to do the preview, there are missions that are kind of outdated, that were made for back then, that still are in it now, but definitely don't really seem right. So that could be a problem. That could absolutely be a problem, because it would kind of feel like, ooh, you're trying to make it a 2020 thing, but then also there's these relics from 2002, which is, by the way, not a bad thing, unless they are bad moments in the game, unless they're like weaknesses of the game. You know what I mean? I mean, if you want to, if the game wants to kind of recognize where it came from in 2002, that's completely fine. But if it's a weakness, if it was something bad back then and they're going to put it in still now and not really change much of it, that could hurt the game. And I think that's probably why I don't see this game getting in the. I'm sure outlets will give it 9s. I'm sure it'll get that high. I think this game has what it takes to do that. But I think overall, if we think about all the stuff together, depending on how people judge it, whether, again, it's judged as a remake, whether it's judged as a game in 2020, and different outlets do it different ways, by the way. And that's why it's kind of confusing and why I don't necessarily like that. That's why I don't actually give review scores when I do reviews. I don't actually give a number because I don't really think it's not something that I like to do. But I do think this game has a really solid chance of being a really good game. So 86 to 89 is my prediction. Let me know in the comments below, guys. What do you think? What would you say the review scores for this game are going to be? Let me know. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to this YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. And like I said, my second channel, the link for it, Podcast Now Plus is its name. I will be in the description below if you guys want to check that out. Subscribe there. Only, again, less than 2 weeks away from the game. We'll be covering it. I'll be making videos on both channels. I'll be live streaming it. So lots of content Mafia related very, very soon. And then we can talk about potentially Mafia 4. So really, really exciting. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video.